Hi, today we are going to be talking about something really interesting. I'm sure this is something that you would have heard about. This is something that you would have definitely come across. But there's a fair chance that you wouldn't have quite gotten the chance to think about it in further depth. But before we jump into the topic, I want you guys to just think of a response to the question that I'm going to ask you just now. So here's the question. What distinguishes a goal from a wish? So I know as I would have completed the question, most of you would have a unique answer or a unique way to identify a goal from a wish. So here's my take on this question. I believe what distinguishes a goal from a wish is the plan of action. A wish is an aspiration that lacks a plan of action, and a goal, on the other hand, is an aspiration that has a concrete plan of action. So, we are going to be talking about goals, but not just any goal. We are going to blend it with a subject of my personal interest, that is finance, and specifically personal finance. So, we are going to be talking about setting financial goals. We are going to explore the various facets of financial goals, and we will start from the very basic question as to why should one have a financial goal at all. So just like in life, we all have a certain goal, right? The goal to buy something, the goal to achieve something, the goal to have a certain standard of family life, a goal to have a certain level of education. The number of goals that we have in our life are far and varied, and among those goals, financial goals play a very important role. So when we talk about financial goals, these are plan of actions that are tied to achieving a particular financial status. So while talking about financial goals, we may have to slightly modify the adage. Those who wander when it comes to setting financial goals are indeed lost. So it is almost imperative that each one of us must have a financial goal in place, and the plan of action will help us spend better, consume better, and secure our financial future much more effectively than we would be able to do without having a financial goal. Always remember, if you have nowhere to reach when it comes to finances, you will reach nowhere. That is quite often than not how it turns out over a longer period. And that by that time, the most precious asset available to mankind, that is time, would have flown away. So time is an important element when it comes to financial goal setting, but more of that later. Before that, I'm going to give you guys a quick framework as to how can you define a good financial goal. So it is also a popular framework and something that I feel is the simplest way to convey the most effective way to define and design a financial goal. It is called the SMART framework. So the SMART is an acronym for the 5 elements, that is S, M, A, R and T. So first of all, we are going to talk about S. S is specificity. It needs to be a specific goal. It needs to be a specific aspiration that you can tie your goal to. It cannot be generic. It needs to be something really specific. For instance, instead of saying that I want to buy a car, you need to be very specific that I want to buy a car of X brand and Y model. That is how specific it needs to get, right? The next alphabet in the acronym is M. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be measurable in monetary terms. When we talk about the specific make and model of the car that you want, it needs to have a certain price tag. It cannot be a priceless vintage car. It needs to be an actual car with an actual vintage available for sale, right? So the goal needs to have a price tag. So you're going to aspire for a car that has an X make and a Y model that is going to cost you A. So that makes it a much better defined financial goal. Next, we're going to move to A. A is about achievability. So achievability basically talks about the goal needs to be achievable. All right. So if you expect your income to not exceed, let's say for instance, 10,000 rupees a month, and you tie a financial goal that you wish to build a corpus of let's say 100 crores over the next 6 months, only basis is 10,000 rupees income, idea of achievability goes out of the picture. So the goal needs to be achievable, it needs to be rational, it needs to be within the realm of possibilities. Speaking about realm of possibilities, it takes us to the fourth letter, that is R. The goal needs to be realistic in nature. It needs to be available, accessible, and realistic in nature. It is okay to plan for a trip to Europe. It is okay to plan for a world tour. At this point in time, perhaps you can stretch it as far as planning for a trip to Mars. Okay, obviously, you need to know the timeline and the the cost that it's going to entail, but you can stretch it that far, but not beyond that. Please do not plan about how much it is going to cost you to take a trip to the sun unless you yourself are working on such project, right? So it needs to be realistic. Bottom line, it needs to be realistic. And the final T, which is perhaps amongst the most important element, it needs to be time bound. There needs to be a certain timeline. I want to buy a car of X make and Y model that is going to cost me A. I know this is up for sale on the market. It is not a priceless vintage. I know it is realistic. I know I have the ability to buy it. My current income will allow me to buy it in so years. You need to define in how many years, how many months, or how many days you want to buy that particular car. So these are the elements of a good and sound financial goal. I will give you a quick recap. It is going to be around the SMART framework. The acronym will help you think of it. This is what smart investors do. This is what smart financial planners do. This is the SMART framework. It needs to be specific. It needs to be measurable. It needs to be achievable. It needs to be realistic. And finally, it needs to be time bound. There needs to be a timeline for it. So guys, this is financial goals and the importance of financial goals and what are the elements to defining a sound and effective financial goal. So more of it real soon in the subsequent interactions. Thank you.